Hello, if you are Pisces, stay with me for the next few minutes. There is a story gently brushing against your life right now, and even if you have not found the words for it yet, your heart has known it for a long time. It is that quiet feeling when something you believed was already closed suddenly appears again. Not loudly, not dramatically, not with any warning, but strong enough to make you pause right in the middle of your familiar rhythm. You may be wondering why old memories are returning at this exact moment. Why a connection you thought had settled is suddenly stirring something deep inside you. And more than anything, why you cannot simply ignore it, even though you once believed you had already moved on. If you find yourself standing in the middle of emotions that are hard to name, if you feel just strong enough to move forward, yet just sensitive enough to slow yourself down, then this story is meant for you. Not to give you quick answers, not to tell you what to choose, but to help you understand what is quietly unfolding inside you right now. And as we look back to the moment where everything first began, you may realize that there was once an opportunity that arrived very softly. So softly, you almost missed it. An opportunity powerful enough to change the way you see love, if you allow yourself to look at it again through the eyes of who you are today. Pisces, there was a moment like this once. Not a major milestone marked on a calendar, not an event that turned your whole world upside down. It arrived when you least expected it, in the middle of an ordinary rhythm of life. Everything looked calm back then, almost too calm. So calm that if someone was not paying close attention, they might have thought nothing important was happening at all. But you knew, your heart recognized it immediately, that something was standing right in front of you. A possibility. A door slightly open. A vision where, if you stepped inside, life could shift onto a different path. More grounded, more stable, less uncertain. It did not demand that you change, but it was present enough to make you stop and truly think. Maybe it was a person who showed up with a quiet sincerity. Maybe it was a sentence spoken without decoration, yet heavy with meaning. Or maybe it was simply a feeling you could not fully explain, that if you said yes, if you allowed it, something long-term was waiting ahead. Not long-term in a dreamy, unrealistic way, but long-term in the way of those who have been through enough storms to understand the value of stability. You saw it clearly. Pisces is not someone who misses real opportunities. You could feel how genuine it was. You understood this was not a moment for playing games, and not something that would easily come again. And precisely because you understood it so well, you did not move forward right away. A quiet pause formed inside you. No one noticed it, but within you, a slow current of thoughts began to flow. You asked yourself whether you were truly ready. Not ready for a relationship, but ready to trust. To trust that good things could stay. To trust that you no longer needed to defend yourself so tightly. To trust that the past, even though it once exhausted you, no longer had the right to decide your future. Pisces loves with their whole being. When you step into something, you do not bring only hope. You bring memories, beliefs, and the marks of wounds that have not fully faded. So, when you stood in front of that opportunity, you were not only looking at what it promised, you were also looking inward, listening carefully to see whether there was enough peace inside you to receive it, and then you chose to slow down. Not to turn away, and not to reach out and grab it either. Just to remain still a little longer, to observe a little more, to see whether that feeling was strong enough to remain after days of silence, to see whether it was a temporary impulse or something that could walk with you through many seasons ahead. In that slowing down, you were not weak at all. On the contrary, it was the sign of someone who had learned to respect their own inner rhythm. You understood that if you moved before you were ready, you might arrive quickly, but you would not be able to stay for long. And Pisces is not searching for things that come and go. You are searching for what can remain, even after the initial light has faded. That opportunity still lives somewhere in your memory, not as something you lost, but as a quiet marker along your path. It reminds you that there was a time when you were allowed to choose, allowed to consider, allowed to place yourself on the scale of your own future, instead of simply reacting to circumstances. And from that moment, a very subtle change began to grow. You started seeing life differently. You no longer rushed toward invitations. You were no longer easily pulled by someone else's pace. You learned how to stand firmly within yourself so that when something truly meant for you appears, you will recognize it not through confusion, but through a deep sense of peace. And when you allow yourself to stay in that peace a little longer, you begin to realize something quietly powerful. Some things never truly left. They have only been waiting for you to be ready to see them in a new light. There is something very few people ever see in Pisces. Beneath that gentle, compassionate exterior, you carry a very deep system of memory. Not loud memories, not stories you repeat over and over, but layers of emotion that have settled quietly, like sediment at the bottom of water. They seem still, yet they are always there. You think deeply, not because you do not know what you want, but because at one time, you knew it very clearly and still lost it. Some experiences in your past arrived without warning. They came in suddenly, shifted everything, and then left before you even had time to understand what had happened. And from that moment on, emotional safety stopped feeling guaranteed. Pisces does not forget quickly. You may not bring things up again. You may not complain. You may not hold resentment, but your body remembers. Your heart remembers. It remembers the feeling of trusting someone completely, only to realize that trust was placed in the wrong hands. It remembers the moment you understood you had opened the door too wide, while the other person only stood there briefly and then walked away. Your fear is not the fear of love. It is the fear of falling from a very great height. The fear of everything feeling steady, warm, familiar, and then suddenly having nothing left to hold on to. That fear does not arrive as panic. It comes quietly, like a familiar whisper every time you prepare to take one more step forward. There are moments when you stand in front of a new connection and you slow down, not because the other person is not good enough, but because there is a question inside you that has never truly been answered. If I trust again, will this time be different? If I open my heart just a little more, will I have the strength to stand back up if everything falls apart again? Pisces once believed that sincere love would always be protected, but after everything you have been through, you learned that not everyone knows how to care for what you offer. And so you began to love more carefully, not coldly, but cautiously, not with closed doors, but with doors left slightly open. On very quiet nights, when no one else is around, you may wonder why this sense of unease still lingers, even after so much time has passed. And then you realize that this fear is not your enemy. It is a part of you trying to protect what is still tender. It reminds you that you were once deeply hurt, and that you do not want to experience that again. But Pisces, there is something important you may not have seen about this fear yet. It did not come to block your happiness. It came to teach you how to love without losing yourself. It came to help you distinguish between impulsive emotion and genuine connection, between promises that are easy to say and actions that know how to stay. You have not lost faith in love. You have only lost faith in giving your entire self to something that is not yet stable. And that is not weakness. That is the mark of someone who has grown after being hurt. Someone who understands that their heart needs care, not a gamble. Within that caution, you begin to form a new standard for what you allow into your life. You no longer search for intensity. You search for safety. You do not need words that make your heart race. You need presence that allows your heart to rest. The fear is still there, but it no longer controls you the way it once did. It becomes a quiet gatekeeper, speaking only when necessary. And when you listen to it with understanding instead of resistance, you begin to step into a different space. A space where you do not need to prove that you are worthy of love. A space where you can love without trading away your own peace. Pisces, you may already sense that you are standing in a very unique moment right now. You are no longer inside the chaos of the past, but you are not fully settled into complete peace either. Everything feels like water at dawn, not perfectly still, yet no longer disturbed by heavy waves. You are there, watching, feeling, quietly adjusting your own breath. Your present moment is not loud. It is made of very small details, a glance that lingers a little longer than usual, a message you have read but are not ready to answer yet, an invitation that is kind enough, yet still asks for more time before you decide. Not because you lack emotion, but because you have learned not to let emotion rush you forward too quickly. Pisces is not closing the door to the world. That door is still open. You are simply no longer standing right at the doorway. You take one step back, just enough to see more clearly who is knocking, who is waiting, and who is only passing through. There is a gentle clarity in the way you exist right now. You allow things to come close, but you do not allow them to touch the deepest parts of you too quickly. Sometimes, you may wonder if you are missing out on something, but then you remember that the peace you feel now is not something you are willing to trade easily. There was a time when you were ready to open your heart completely for just a small spark of hope. Now you understand that hope also needs a foundation. It needs consistency, it needs presence over time, and it needs a sense of safety that does not have to be proven. In this quiet space, you learn to listen to yourself more than to anyone else. You notice very subtle signals in your body, how your heartbeat shifts when someone steps closer, how your breath feels lighter or heavier when you think of a certain name. You no longer try to convince yourself that everything will be okay. You wait and you feel to see whether it truly is. Keeping distance is not building walls. It is how you create boundaries with respect. You respect your own experiences. You respect what once caused you pain. And you also respect the people who enter your life by not offering what you are not yet ready to protect together with them. That takes great courage, even if from the outside it looks like silence. Pisces is not searching for promises right now. You are searching for the feeling of being at ease in someone's presence. No need for many words. No need for constant explanations. Just knowing that if you slow down, they do not walk away. If you need space, they do not disappear. You need time to see the consistency repeat itself, long enough for the worry inside you to soften. There are still questions floating there, without clear answers. But you are no longer in a rush to solve them. You allow yourself to live alongside those questions, like living with morning mist. It does not block your vision. It simply makes everything a little softer, and within that softness, you feel safer. You are not rejecting love. On the contrary, you are treating it with deeper respect than ever before. You understand that every time you take a risk, you are not only risking someone else, you are risking your own ability to heal. And this time, you want to be sure that if you fall, there is solid ground beneath you to stand back up, not the familiar emptiness you have known before. This period of waiting is not delaying your life. It is the process of rebuilding how you walk through your emotional world, slower, clearer, with less harm. And when you remain still within yourself long enough, you begin to realize something very important. Not every closed door is a loss. Some doors are only left slightly open so you can hear more clearly which footsteps are truly worth inviting in. Pisces, there is a very gentle truth here, and it is also one of the hardest to face. In this journey, the one who has challenged you the most has never truly been anyone else. Not the people who came and went, not the promises that were left unfinished, not even the circumstances beyond your control. The hardest questions have come from within you, from your sensitivity, your kindness, and the layers of emotion so deep that sometimes even you struggle to name them. The trust inside you did not disappear. It simply tilted slightly after the times you gave fully and were met with silence. You still believe in good things, but that belief no longer stands perfectly upright. It leans just a little, enough that each time you prepare to step forward, you have to adjust your balance again. And that is tiring. Not because you are weak, but because you are always trying to keep everything from falling apart one more time. Feeling not fully healed is not a failure. It is proof that you are being honest with yourself. Pisces does not pretend to be fine. You know exactly when something inside you still tightens the heart. There are days when you feel you have come very far, very steady. And then there are small moments, a familiar sound, a passing memory that remind you some wounds no longer hurt, but still need care. And then you find yourself standing between two paths. Neither one is wrong, and neither one is easy. One path offers familiar safety, fewer waves, lower expectations, less risk. There, you know how to protect yourself. You know how to live without being swept away. You know you will not be deeply hurt again. But there is also a quiet emptiness there. So quiet that sometimes you wonder whether you are truly living or simply existing. The other path holds hope. Not a naive hope, but a hope refined by experience. It carries the possibility of something warmer, more alive. And with it comes risk. The risk of trusting. The risk of opening up. The risk of facing the possibility that you could be hurt again. What makes you hesitate is not the fear of love. It is the fear that you might not be strong enough if things do not unfold as you hope. You ask yourself which path would hurt less. But Pisces, this is a question with no perfect answer. Pain does not come only from what we choose. It also comes from what we refuse. Staying in safety for too long can quietly exhaust the heart. Moving forward before you are ready can leave deeper marks. And you know this. That is why you do not rush. Your greatest challenge right now is not making a decision. It is learning how to stay with uncertainty without blaming yourself. Learning to accept that you are in a process, that you do not need to be perfect, that you do not need to be decisive immediately. You are learning to listen to yourself, not with suspicion, but with kindness. There is a quiet strength in admitting you are not ready, a strength that comes from not forcing yourself to be fully healed in order to deserve love. You allow yourself to be real, with the parts that are still recovering, with beliefs that are being rebuilt slowly, piece by piece. And when you remain still long enough in that honesty, something very important begins to happen. You stop seeing choice as a test of right or wrong. You begin to see it as a path toward deeper self-understanding. Each moment of hesitation is no longer weakness. It becomes a sign that you are weighing life with both heart and awareness. And within that awareness, a very gentle light begins to appear, soft but steady. Enough to let you know that whichever path you choose, you are no longer someone walking in the dark. Pisces, something very special happens when you are still enough and honest enough with yourself. Things that once left, if they still hold meaning, will find their way back. Not loudly, not like a sudden wave. They return with slower steps, heavier, and with caution, as if they too understand that this time, everything cannot be placed carelessly. The person once left you at a moment when they probably believed it was the right choice. They walked away thinking that somewhere else there would be something easier, lighter, less demanding. They thought leaving would bring freedom, relief, and the sense that they were heading in the right direction. While they moved on, you stayed, carrying unanswered questions, learning to stand on your own when the familiar was no longer there. Time does not flow the same for everyone. For Pisces, time is a process of settling. For them, time is a process of collision. They step into new experiences, new paths, new choices. And in that space, they begin to see something that they had never truly had the calm to recognize before. Not every happiness lies in leaving. Not every new thing brings peace. Some things, only once lost, do people truly understand their value. This return does not come in a hurry. It carries the weight of considered thought, long nights of self-questioning, repeated silent questions. They do not come back to prove anything. They come to speak the things that have been kept too long, the things swallowed because they were afraid of complicating everything, the admissions delayed by ego and by their own confusion. In their eyes now, there is something different, no longer the shallow certainty of the past. Instead, a humility of someone who understands they were wrong. Not wrong for leaving, but wrong for not fully appreciating the value of what they had. They look at you with a new respect, as if finally realizing that the love you gave is not something to be found anywhere else. Pisces, you feel the change, even if you do not rush to trust it. Your intuition is sharp enough to recognize the difference between words and the truth behind them. You see that this regret does not come from fleeting loneliness, but from understanding earned through experience. And that makes you slow down, not to avoid, but to observe more carefully. There are words spoken softly, but they carry weight. And the silences this time no longer unsettle you. They make you listen deeper. They do not try to persuade you to come back. They simply stand there, completely honest, as if accepting that the choice is no longer in their hands. And in that moment, something very important happens inside you. You realize you are no longer standing as someone waiting. You are no longer someone whose worth must be proven. You are standing firmly within yourself, able to listen without breaking, able to face things without losing the peace you have spent so long rebuilding. This return is not a promise of an outcome. It is a mirror reflecting the path you have traveled. It shows you how much you have grown, how strong you have become, and how you have learned to hold yourself. And when you allow this story to stay within the quiet space of the present, you begin to feel a different rhythm forming. A rhythm no longer governed by the past, but guided by clarity, spreading softly enough to illuminate your next steps, whether you choose to move forward or to pause with the calm of your own heart. Pisces, there are moments when you sit very still, and on the surface, no one notices what is happening, but inside you, a quiet dialogue never truly stops. It is not a loud argument, not a violent struggle, but two currents flowing side by side, coexisting in a heart that has seen enough to no longer be simple. Your mind speaks clearly. It does not raise its voice. It does not demand, but every word carries experience. It reminds you of what has happened, reminds you of that sinking feeling when things did not go where you believed they should. It whispers that you have spent a long time learning to stand again, learning to trust yourself, and building a fragile yet necessary sense of safety. And it asks you a very direct question. Do you truly want to return to the path where you lost so much before? Then your heart speaks. It does not argue. It does not contradict. It is simply real. It does not retell old stories, does not justify anyone, and makes no promises. It simply reminds you that these feelings have never disappeared. They have quieted, covered by time and self-protection, but they never fully left. And when that person reappears, those feelings do not need to be named. They are present, familiar, close, as if waiting for you to see them again with fresh eyes. You are not conflicted because you are weak. You are conflicted because you feel both sides at once. You understand that your mind is right, and you also know your heart does not lie. The challenge is that both are valid, and both want to protect you in their own way. You fear being bound, not because you hate commitment, but because you have been in a connection where your boundaries slowly disappeared. You fear being trapped, not because you fear staying, but because you have stayed too long in a place that no longer nourished you. And you fear being hurt again if you trust the wrong person, because you know all too well how it feels to gather yourself after giving so much. That fear does not appear to stop you. It appears to slow you down, so that you no longer rush toward emotion just because it is familiar. So you do not confuse deep attachment with repeating an old cycle. It stands there like a gentle warning, reminding you that this time, every decision must be based on awareness, not only on impulse. You cannot decide yet, and that does not mean you are avoiding. It means you are giving yourself time to fully feel. You are not forcing clarity when your heart is still unsure. You are not forcing yourself to choose a side while both sides are speaking at once. And that is a deep form of growth, even if on the outside it looks like hesitation. In this quiet, you learn that not every question needs an immediate answer. Some things become clear only when you stop trying to solve them, when you allow feelings to exist without conclusion, when you accept that inner conflict is not the enemy, but a sign that you are seriously weighing your life. Pisces, you are not standing between two choices to see which will hurt less. You are standing there to learn how not to hurt yourself with rushed decisions. You are learning to trust your own ability to protect yourself, not by closing your heart, but by listening to it with the wisdom you have built over time. And when you allow this inner conflict to exist a little longer, without resistance, without judgment, you begin to sense something very subtle. Beneath all the worry, beneath both reason and emotion, a part of you is gradually becoming very clear. A part that knows what you truly deserve. A part that no longer fears making a choice. because whichever path comes next, you are strong enough to remain yourself. Pisces, at this point in the story, you may feel a very different kind of silence settling in. It is no longer the silence of avoidance, nor the silence of fear. It is the quiet that appears when everything has been laid out honestly on the table, when you stop chasing answers and allow them to find you in their own time and rhythm. This connection is not something easily set aside. It carries memories, emotions, and layers of meaning that not every relationship can hold. Some connections enter our lives quickly and leave just as fast. But some, even if interrupted, leave a deep impression, like an underground stream flowing beneath a seemingly calm surface. And you know it. You feel it every time their name comes to mind, without reason, without effort. They are no longer standing before you as they once did. There is a very clear change, without need for lengthy explanation. You see the maturity in the way they are present. A seriousness no longer colored by promises, but by responsibility. A clarity that does not aim to persuade, but to honor. It seems they have gone far enough to understand that love is not something to be tried and abandoned, nor something to return to at convenience. Pisces, you notice this. Change, yet you do not let it sweep you away. You are no longer someone who measures a connection's value only by observing someone else's change. You look inward, listening to yourself. You notice whether your heart feels calm when you think about moving closer. You sense whether your body relaxes or tenses when you imagine the future. You do not need anyone to prove anything. You only need the truth inside yourself to be honored. And here, the most important message begins to emerge. The power of choice has never left your hands. Even if the past made you feel swept away, reactive, or unprepared, the present is different. You are no longer standing, waiting for someone else's decision. You are the chosen one, and you are also the chooser. To love deeply does not mean you must endure. Pisces, you once confused the two. You thought if you were patient enough, tolerant enough, sacrificing enough, everything would work out. But now you understand that true love does not ask you to shrink yourself. It does not require you to stay silent before what hurts you. It does not ask you to trade your peace to hold on to a connection. This time, you are allowed to set boundaries. Not cold boundaries, but boundaries born of self-respect. Boundaries that allow you to stay without losing yourself. Boundaries that allow you to open your heart without breaking. Boundaries that allow you to love while keeping the deepest part of yourself safe. The ending of this story is not pre-written. It does not reside in their promises nor in your fears. It lies in how you choose to step forward after seeing, feeling, and understanding everything. You may choose to move closer with clarity and a steady heart. Or you may choose to pause, not for lack of love, but because you love yourself enough. And whatever choice you make, it is no longer a loss. Because what matters most is not who stays or leaves, but the growth within you. A Pisces who knows they deserve emotional safety. A Pisces who understands that happiness does not come from holding on, but from being true to yourself in any connection. When this story closes in that soft stillness, you can place your hand over your chest and feel your heartbeat still there, steadier than before. No hurry, no pressure, just quietly existing, strong enough to move forward and gentle enough to wait for what is truly meant for you, if and when it comes.